Hello, everybody, and welcome to Week 9 of the UFL season. 2 weeks remain, and these teams' playoff pushes. 3 spots still remain. Teams can get eliminated. Teams can clinch this week. Let's waste no more time and see what happens. We begin with the DC Defenders traveling to the Orlando Storm. The Storm are 2.5-point favorites in this one. This is the final home game for the Storm this season, and it should be a really interesting game. The Storm the past few weeks have not been playing the cleanest of style of football. They're still doing well. They're still winning these games. They have clinched a playoff spot last week, but they're still in the point where I feel like they could be playing better, even with all the success they have had. DC has lost back-to-back games, both against the Louisville Kings, and are looking to bounce things back, but they're not going to have MVP candidate Jordan Teamu under center for this week and for the rest of the season. So the feelings and the vibes around DC are pretty much at an all-time low at this point. I do still see this game being pretty close because of the kind of sloppiness we've seen from Orlando, and the fact that DC's defense is still a really damn good defense, even if the past 2 weeks against Louisville did not fully show that. And that Spencer Sanders did seem to get comfortable in the offense by the tail end of that game against the Kings. But I am going to pick the Orlando Storm to win this one. I just need to see it first from DC with Spencer Sanders before I can really be on their side for a game again this season. And for as sloppy and as kind of lower middling scoring that Orlando has had this season, there's still been a pretty efficient team offensively. They're moving the ball pretty well. They just can't finish off drives with points occasionally. And that's kind of just the nature of that team, but I do still feel like Orlando is the better team in this matchup with how they've been playing the past few weeks, and the fact that they are the healthier team in most of the aspects. So I'm going to pick the Orlando Storm to win this one. Next up, the Birmingham Stallions are 1.5-point favorites as they travel to take on the Columbus Aviators. And the matchup between these two teams last week was not the most thrilling of matchups. It was a very defensive game, and if it wasn't for special teams, it would have ended 7-3. But thanks to special teams, Birmingham got the 14-3 win. Both teams' offenses had drives, so they were able to move the ball pretty well. They got into plus territory, even got into field goal range at points, but eventually the drive either stalled out due to a turnover on downs, or a missed field goal, or any other combination of events. It was all around a pretty weird game, and the defenses really did shine in this one. But in a rematch and in Columbus, I do expect things to be a bit more offensive. I expect this to be a decently scoring game that I do have the Columbus Aviators coming out on top in. I was always going to lean Columbus with this game because of the nature that they play in for back-to-back games this season. They have won both of their second and back-to-back so far this year, and I would not be surprised if they win this one as well, it being in Columbus as well, the final home game of the season. I expect the Aviators to show out pretty well in this one, and just Birmingham did not show enough for me last week against this Columbus offense and this Columbus team as a whole for me to really have a whole lot of confidence in them. I do still like Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I think he'll have a better game in this one, as will that Birmingham offense as a whole have a better game. But they just didn't give me enough in that game last week in Birmingham for me to be confidently changing my initial thought of this game, even from a week prior, and picking the Columbus Aviators. I was always going to have this be a split season series. I'm going to keep it that way just because we didn't get enough the week prior. The Dallas Renegades travel to the Louisville Kings this week. The Kings are 1.5-point favorites in this one. And I expect this game to be pretty close. It's kind of a stoppable force against movable object game to a degree. And more so I say that because the Dallas Renegades have now won a game on the road this season. And the Louisville Kings just picked up their first win at home last week against DC. Dallas are losers of their last 5 after a really hot 3-0 start where it looked like they had the MVP, the Offensive Player of the Year, the Coach of the Year, and just everything was going great for them. Then they had to go on the road in week 4, and nothing has looked quite the same since. For Louisville, they had a very sluggish start, though they did play some close games early on in the season. They are now winners of 4 of their last 5, tied for that final playoff spot, and playing some really sound football. They're not turning the ball over as much as they did early on in the season. They're not making the same mental mistakes they did early on in the season. Chandler Rogers is efficient. He's just doing what he needs to do, not trying to make any extra plays. He's trusting in his team and he's trusting in his defense to be able to pick up the slack that's there. And over these past 5 weeks or so, the defense has more than picked up the slack. They have been fantastic and the massive reason why they're in the spot they are currently. This game being in Louisville, I'm going to have the Kings win in this one. That win last week against DC was very impressive with just the fact that it was a shootout against DC and they're able to come away with the win. And then again, 4 of the last 5, they're a fantastic looking team. They're playing the right side, the right kind of football, it feels at just the right time. They've been in this do or die stage for a while now. Louisville's in that spot where I can be pretty confident in them. Meanwhile, Dallas, I feel like the writing is more so on the wall for them in terms of how this season is going to end, and it's a very tough way for the season to end. I'm going to have the Kings picking up the win in their final home game. Lastly, the St. Louis Battlehawks at 3-point favorites are traveling to the Houston Gamblers. And this very well might be my game of the week this week, just based off of how last week's result went. Houston got the very impressive win in St. Louis last week, their first road win of the season, and now they're playing host to the Battlehawks, looking to be able to sweep them in the season series. St. Louis struggled offensively against Houston. The defense, especially in the second half, played really well, held them to 3 points. But in the offense, they were held to about 1 for 5, or maybe even 1 for 6 in the red zone in that game. They really left a lot of points on the board and really left a lot of great chances unanswered, including the punt return early on in the game and the other turnovers that they forced as well. Houston was able to capitalize on some of their chances. They had the pick six against Luis Perez, and they did score off of the second interception. But all around, it was a kind of a half-baked game for both sides, and they're going to be trying to finish baking it in this game. I've been going back and forth, not really too confident in either team, but I am going to pick the Houston Gamblers to win this one. With the biggest reason that we've seen throughout the entire year, they are a better team at home than how they play on the road. And this is going to be a game where they're hosting a team that they've already beaten on the road this season. I'm going to lean in favor of them just because of that fact alone. St. Louis is still a team that I feel like will make the playoffs and make a splash in the playoffs potentially. But just based off of how that last week went and the fact that every time it feels like St. Louis is about to hit their stride fully, they either do a half step or take a step back on that stride. And they just feel off to me, especially after that loss. Houston, they're finding some momentum. They're a game back of that final playoff spot. This could be a massive week for them. I'm going to pick the Gamblers to win. There you have it, my complete thoughts on week 9 of the UFL. I appreciate everyone tuning in. Let the chaos unfold as the playoffs are near. I'll see you all next time. Have yourselves a damn good one. Peace.